We're talking about, obviously, a lot of politics, but let's deal with policy today at the White House. It's directed at severe weather, Kayleigh. President Biden giving remarks on extreme weather as we follow this Hurricane Beryl toward Jamaica and what could be a very destructive storm, eventually touching us here in the U.S. And I'm glad to say that we're joined by Amos Hochstein, senior advisor to the president on energy and investment. He's with us from a sunny and warm North Lawn. Amos, welcome back to Bloomberg TV and radio. It's great to see you. Can we just start with the matter at hand here and the potential threat from this storm? Is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, for instance, safe and sound? Is our infrastructure protected along the Gulf Coast?
Well, first, Joe and Kayleigh, thank you for having me. It's good to be back here. Yeah, look, this is exactly why we have planning all year long to make sure that we are ready for moments like this. We have a hurricane that is tragically affecting people and lives in the Caribbean, Mexico, and could be coming towards the Gulf of Mexico and in the United States. And making sure that we have a response to it, both to support people and communities, as well as making sure that we have the ability to, if we have to do something to address shortages in energy, we're ready, prepared to do that. And so the president has ordered us a long time ago to make sure we are prepared. And I believe that we are. The SPR has enough in it to address concerns of weather concerns or other geopolitical issues. And there are other areas and tools that we have at our disposal that we're always willing to do. Look, just today, we're releasing 1 million barrels of gasoline from the Northeast Reserve into the market, which should help bring additional capacity into the market ahead of the storm. And most importantly, ahead of July 4th, when so many Americans get in their cars and RVs and are to travel across the country at record numbers.
Well, as we consider the SPR and the availability of the contents of it for emergencies, of course, it is not as full as it once was after it was tapped earlier in this administration when we saw gas prices so high. Almost obviously, gas prices are not at those levels now. The average, according to AAA, is about $3.50 a gallon across the U.S. How high would gas prices need to get for the president to consider tapping the SPR again exactly for that purpose, to get those prices down?
Well, I think that, as you mentioned, when the advent of the Russian war in Ukraine and then as that war continued, we had soaring oil prices in the United States and around the world, and gas prices soared to $5 a gallon. And that's when President Biden ordered that historic release from the SPR of 180 million barrels over a period of 6 months. Since then, we've seen two things happen. One, the private sector that was just reeling and coming out of a very bad era for during COVID of production has gone to record production in the United States. We are producing more oil today in the United States than at any time any country has in history, and we are near those records for natural gas production as well. And so that's one thing that happened. We have more supply on the market today. The second is that we've been repurchasing back oil into the Strategic Reserve. Roughly about 40 million barrels have been purchased back into the reserve and replenished. And as importantly, we canceled the congressional mandated sales out of the SPR that were supposed to come into effect over the last several months. So we're in good shape. We have enough capacity in the SPR to address what we need to do. And no, it's not as full as it was 2 years ago, but it is a significant reserve that we still are able to tap. And I would say it's not about prices, it's about the overall environment of the market. And do we need to put liquidity of oil into the market at any given moment, whether it's geopolitical pressures or weather or other issues that are affecting the U.S. economy?
Amos, I know your time is tight, but we have to ask you as well about the potential for shock based on geopolitics in the Middle East.
Yep.
I wonder your concern about ready supplies. You mentioned this release of 1 million barrels of gasoline from the Northeast gasoline supply reserve. But is our energy infrastructure, is the global market able to absorb a new front in the war with Israel? If Israel were to open a front to the north with Hezbollah, what would happen to the price of oil?
Well, first, I think we're trying to do a couple of things. One is to make sure, try as hard as we can. The president's spending an enormous amount of time every day on trying to get us to a ceasefire that brings hostages home and practically ends the war in Gaza. Second, to keep the escalation that we have seen over the last several weeks on the border between, or on the blue line, the area between Israel and Lebanon. We saw this has been going on for 8 months. We saw the escalation really ramp up over the month of May and early June. We've seen that come down a bit, which is a good thing. And we have told both sides, we're working with both sides. I've spoken to them. I was in Lebanon and Israel last week, and we are going to try to continue to work as hard as we can to prevent a further escalation. That war is, any kind of escalation would have, it's not just about markets, it would have significant ramifications for thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives. And we believe that it is possible to get to a resolution of that and to end that conflict so that Israelis can go back to their homes securely, that Lebanese can go back to their homes and farms in respectively on the Lebanese side, and that we can end this goal. However, we are preparing for every scenario. And the president has been adamant that while we try to prevent war, we are prepared to handle the consequences, even the ones that will affect the economy. The reason the Northeast Reserve that you mentioned is important, in the summer, we do import gasoline from the global market in the Northeast. So this does have a pretty significant impact on what we're trying to do and make sure that people's effects for their budgets as they travel on July 4th, that prices are as low as they can be.